the leaves be turning, the wind be churning, and the wood stoves be burning. Rob G with you here. We're gonna work a little bit today on this T-28 upper cowling. So this is a cowling that I got from a crash T-28. Had a little post-crash fire. Fortunately, the pilot survived. Anyhow, we're going to be taking some parts off of here to repair the cowling that came off of the blue airplane that I'm repairing, that was bellied in. Lots of traffic by the house here, hard to do a video. Anyhow, the upper cowling has, the side cowlings have these hooks that you can hook them on there, and when you want to remove the cowling, you got this lever that pushes this detent down, and you can slide this off of here. Can't do this, I don't have 3 hands. Anyhow, that let you slide the side cowling forward and take it off these pins. There were these shear pins that the next section of cowling has ears with holes that slide over these to hold the front of the cowling in place. And then these swing down when you close the cowling. It's mainly what I'm after here. This goes up to your carburetor air box. This is the scoop that goes to the carburetor. So on the blue airplane cowling, these fittings bolt to the firewall, and those are broken out. And this rib here, former, is tore up. These doublers and this bracket here. So I'm gonna see if I can drill these off this panel and use them on the other one. Also, there's damage on, I think, the left side of the blue cowling where this bracket is crooked. So that means this sheet metal here has been tore up. So I'll have to see what all I can salvage off of here to fix the other one, and I might end up having to fabricate some new parts here, who knows, or some doublers at least. But the intention is to repair the cowling that came off the blue airplane. It looks pretty good on the outside. It's just got these pieces damaged from the accident, and possibly the recovery. When they snatch them out of the field, sometimes they get a little rough with stuff. You find a lot of times the damage you repair is what they did handling and moving the airplane. So I don't know, that could have happened in the accident, but the pictures I saw of the cowling when the airplane was on its belly didn't look as bad as after it was moved. So they probably got a little rough with it in places. The people running the wrecker aren't A&Ps, you know. They probably figured, oh, well, it's already tore up. Anyhow, we'll get on with it here. For my next trick, we're going to take a die grinder and split this thing just to make it easier to work on. It's pretty much broke anyhow. So I've got my trusty $12 Harbor Freight Central Pneumatic die grinder, 90-degree, a clone of my $200 Blue Point tool that probably uses a little less air and a little smoother, but which one's my favorite? Whichever one's in my hand at the time. Okay, so I got the parts drilled out of here that I need to mount this back to the airplane firewall. These brackets on the blue cowling, one of these is ripped out and the other one broke off. So this rib, the rubber seal, these brackets, there's shims that go here, and the skin is spot welded on to this piece, so I'll have to carefully peel that up and grind the spot welds out. And when I put it back on there, I'll double countersink rivets along here and probably use some high sol to glue it together. I don't have any way to spot weld it. I might end up taking these. This might be bad on at least one side, so I'll probably end up cutting this off, using it, and then putting the doublers in here to beef it up. This is a angle off of the main longeron, goes above the wing, 70-75 material. You can see the intergranular corrosion there. All of these I've seen have that issue, so I'll just fabricate new ones and install them. The longeron was fine, zinc chromate in between them when they put it together. This was the better of the two, but anyhow, I'm gonna go get the blue cowling and we'll see how bad it is. All right, here's the top cowling off the blue airplane, and you can see where this corner bracket got ripped out. Ripped the end out of the rib. This side got broke off, and that was because the top left bolt pulled out of the nut plate on the engine mount. There's a barrel nut up in the fuselage fitting, and it pulled the threads out of the barrel nut, and so the top left engine mount came loose from the firewall and the engine drooped, and that's why it tore these out. These points bolt to the frame, a tube that runs across the engine mount. That's what holds your cowling up. That's what holds it up in the middle here. So it bolts to the firewall here with two fittings in the firewall, and then these ears mount to the engine mount, and that's what holds this assembly in place. Your carburetor air scoop. There's a rubber gasket that goes on there. This is actually in better shape on the other cowling, so I'll change that. This bracket, it tore out this rib here. So that bracket's crooked. That looks like the main damage on this. So here on the back where the rib got tore out, the skin pulled down. You can see the spot welds. So on this one, I'll grind the rib flange off and save the skin. On this piece that I saved off the other cowling, I'll grind the skin off, and then I'll have good parts to put together. So these are pretty well lined up. There may be something bent there. Doesn't look like they're perfect. Over here, it's pretty obvious the front one's tweaked. Anyhow, I think it's savable. As these pieces get harder and harder to find, I've got a good top one. I got it a sale, but it actually has a patch on the top. So this is, I think this one would look better when it's finished. All right, so I'm working this flange off. You can see the spot welds. This aluminum has to be extremely clean. They acid dip it and then spot weld it immediately, is my understanding. So that means there's not going to be any primer in between where the spot welds are put together, just like on your automobile out there nowadays. So there's some light nastiness. This is a prime area for corrosion between spot welds. So you can kind of see, get the sun just right, you can see where the spot welds are. So I just take my trusty die grinder and hit those spots. And then as you work this metal up, you can see it's starting to tear where the spot welds are, and you just pull it on up. And you know, I had it off camera. It's hard to do this and film at the same time. Anyhow, you grind them thin and break them out. I haven't damaged the skin at all here. And then I'll take my die grinder and very carefully grind all of these down flush. Clean this up, and I'll prime it and put the other rib back on there. And everywhere that a spot weld is, we'll put a double flush rivet. You could leave round head rivets on this side, but that's not how it looked. It had one here and one here, just to line the parts up before they spot welded them. But anyhow, we'll double flush them, countersink both sides, and it'll end up looking like it should. This has to be smooth because this lays on top of the skin on the firewall, I believe. The bracket that goes in here had a bolt that bolts to the firewall, and then this flange just lays on top of the firewall. Anyhow, I'll continue working this strip off of here. This was the flange. This was the actually, this was the rib that was in here. The end was broke out where it sheared the rivets, and this bracket is still on the firewall. Tore a big piece out of the end of the rib here, so I just hit it lightly with the die grinder and flexed it back and forth till it broke off to get this out of the way. So that lets me, I cut it, you can see where I cut it and broke it off, and that way I can just play with this thin strip here and not have to worry about having the vertical part of the web of the former in the way there. Makes it easier to handle this by cutting that off. Okay, so I got the flange all ground off here where the spot welds are. Looks pretty good. I'll get the old die grinder and take each one of them nubs off. Here's one that was broke loose. So the books always say if you have spot welds broke loose, you just drill it in the center and put a rivet in it. That's the fix. So like I said, each one of these spots is a good place to put a rivet. In fact, I might go ahead and just drill the holes before I grind those down. That way I'll know the location that I want the rivets.